Hello and welcome. This is Railway Top 10s, and today we'll be counting down our list for the top 10 American steam locomotives that should have been preserved. I will not be including rebuilds or future creations such as the T1. I have a separate list for those kind of locos which I will publish at a later date. I will also not be including any locos that have the same design as a foreign counterpart, like the New Haven I-5. But anyway, let's go. Number 10. The Pennsylvania Railroad K5. These locomotives were built by the Pennsy as a prototype 462 to attempt at a larger Pacific than the successful K4s. Two of these locomotives were made, one at Altoona and another at the Baldwin Works. They were given large tenders and had a smokebox appearance different to that of the K4. They were delivered in 1929 and were dubbed a success from PRR. However, the K5 would be one of the last steam locomotives produced for this company, as the Great Depression rolled in and electric locomotives took the stands. Both locomotives were scrapped without ceremony in the late 1950s. Number 9. The Western Pacific GS64. The Western Pacific GS64 is the exact same design as the Southern Pacific's GS6 locomotives, except these had smoke deflectors. They were known as war babies or baby daylights due to their smaller resemblance to the popular GS4 Daylight Pacific. SP had lent these locomotives over to Western Pacific for use over their Feather River Canyon route, of which many were based at Oroville Shed and were very strong mixed-usage engines. However, when dieselization came in 1953, 3 GS4s were sent back to Southern Pacific, and one became the locomotive for a snowplow operation. All of the Western Pacific locos, however, were cut up in 1953, with the SP ones biting the dust in 1958. Number 8. The Chicago Northwestern Class E4. Before World War II in 1937, the Chicago and Northwestern were in need of new locomotives to haul the famous 400 Steam Express. However, when they were planning out, the manager suggested that streamlining would be the wrong approach to take, and to instead bid for the new diesel-powered locomotives. So this class almost never came to be. But it wasn't until the similar F7s by the Milwaukee Road that the company were convinced that a new class of locomotives should be undertaken. They hauled the 400 alongside smaller E2s until 1953, where they were put on secondary passenger duties, and one was even recorded hauling a short freight. The last one was scrapped in 1961. In my personal opinion, I think these locomotives would be an absolute treat to see in real life, and a true glory to rail fans like me. Number 7. The Pennsylvania Railroad Class Q2. In 1942, Altoona Works produced a prototype locomotive bearing a 4-4-6-4 wheel arrangement. The Q2 was one of the largest non-articulated locomotives in the US and had a power output of almost 80,000 horsepower. The Q2 was Pensy's most successful duplex locomotive due to a special mechanic that stopped major wheel slips from occurring, which was the main weakness for locomotives with a similar wheel arrangement. It was capable of pulling over 125 cars at a steady 50 miles per hour, but this wasn't enough for it to be saved. New diesel locomotives were introduced in the late 40s, and the Q2 ran out of uses and was scrapped in 1951. To be honest, seeing a 4464 steam locomotive would be a huge honour to see, but I guess the mighty Q2 has fallen into the history books. Number 6. The Chesapeake and Ohio Class L2. During World War II, the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad produced a class of 464 locomotives. They weighed almost 900,000 pounds and had a boiler pressure of 255 psi. The Chesapeake and Ohio had ordered the last ever express steam locomotives in the US with the purchase of an L2A, a subclass of the popular L2. Unfortunately, that also meant that their time was up. The original L2s were retired in 1953 and headed to the scrapyard, with the L2As to follow. Number 5. The Baltimore and Ohio President Class P7D. Being one of the first railroads ever in America, the B&O needed a strong locomotive to haul the famous Cincinnatian that ran between Baltimore and Cincinnati. That was until the 1950 reroute from Detroit to Cincinnati. This service ran until 1971. Anyway, the answer to their problems was a very snazzy blue-coloured engine known as the P7, or President. These mighty brutes were described as having a steamboat sound and one of the lowest pitch whistles ever. Later on, 4 new locomotives were built to haul the service with lower bearings and 6 axle tenders. These were known as the P7D. As like most steam locomotives, the dieselisation of railways hit them hard, and they were all scrapped very quickly. Number 4. The Southern Pacific AC-9. The AC-9, in a way, is basically a reverse cab forward. They were created by Lima in 1939 and would be the SP's largest and heaviest steam locomotives. They had a slight streamline to them, allowing them to gain high speeds very efficiently. They had a 2884 wheel arrangement and earned themselves a Yellowstone nickname. Unfortunately, in 1956, they were quickly taken out of service and would never be seen again, which in my opinion is very sad, as these locomotives would make a perfect addition with the main line, what with 4014 being redone. The two could do a double header, but maybe that's just me being an avid steam fan. Number 3. Baltimore and Ohio LL1. Another listing for the B&O, the LL1 was an oddball of a locomotive. It bears an 0880 wheel arrangement, and made the B&O famous again for having the first articulated locomotive in regular service. They served Pennsylvania and were given the nickname of Old Maud. However, when the B&O started using 2664 and 2882 designs, these trains found themselves jobless and were scrapped for parts. A sudden and sad ending for Old Maud. Number 2. The Erie L1 Camelback. The Erie L1 has been given the rather amusing nickname of the Mother Hubbard, or as it's most popularly known, the Camelback. They were made by Alco in 1907, and only 3 were ever made. This unique design inspired such locomotives as the New Jersey T38, and the Camelback became a sudden worldwide locomotive. This was the only ever articulated version, which, in my opinion, would have been enough to get it preserved. The Camelback was replaced in 1930 by larger locomotives. Mother Hubbard. Now, before I announce number 1, I'd like to have a quick slideshow of some honourable mentions. Very sad to see them go. But anyway, now it's time for number 1. Number 1. The Pennsylvania Railroad S1. Probably my favourite American locomotive ever, never to be seen again. The S1 was a concept developed by Richard Lowry and was the longest locomotive engine ever built, with a 6-4-4-6 wheel arrangement. Only one single locomotive was built, and it was used between Chicago and Crestline. With the amount of power that it contained, it could be almost definite that when in light engine operations, this train could be able to reach 150 plus miles per hour. But this was never tested. As with most duplexes, wheel slips were very common, and the Loco was taken out of service to be scrapped without any celebrations. I could go on and on about how glorious this machine was, but I think that the world's largest steam locomotive should 100% be preserved, and that's why it wins my list for the top 10 American steam locomotives that should have been preserved. Thanks for watching this top 10 video. Is there any I've missed? Is there any locomotives that you thought should have made it onto the top 10 American steam locos that should have been preserved? And also, if you've got any ideas for future top 10s, please do let me know, and write them in the comments below. That's all from me, folks. Peace!